loose of the Chiefs for the score.
Only Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders rushed for more career yards than Curtis Martin. His football life ended at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It began in Pittsburgh.
I remember when people used to ask me, do I have any fear when I'm playing football? And I think understanding the fear that my grandmother must have gone through, that was one of the things that always drove me to not fear. So in court, they said there was a woman and a man. My grandmother was following them both around while they were just taking things out of her home. At the end of the day, I think they robbed her for $140 and maybe a couple pieces of jewelry. The woman told the judge that my grandmother just kept pleading and begging for her life, just telling them, you could take anything. You can just leave me alone. The man just looked at my grandmother and said, listen, I have to kill you before I leave, so leave me alone.
You gonna be a football player when you grow up?
Today is the best day of your life. Believe it.
Give me 18 years of daylight. That's all right.
Greatest leader I've ever known.
What a ride it's been.
I call him the boy wonder.
Growing up in Pittsburgh, Curtis Martin saw an empty future. Violence stripped his hopes bare, but he found inspiration in joy and grief.
I think my love of art is more just my understanding of life. I think that we are creating our own collage of ourselves every day. I decided to look for art that described a part of my personality. Every piece has some type of personal meaning for me. I believe that life is really art in itself.
So you grew up around here. What was that like?
I mean, Pittsburgh is kind of filled with a lot of oxymorons. For instance, where we're at, if we walk 3 blocks one way, we're in one of the most violent neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. If we walk 3 blocks to the left, we're in one of the most affluent neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gave me my foundation and kind of gave me my roots and made me who I am today. To describe my parents' relationship in a nutshell, I can go back to my first real recollection of life. It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. My mother comes rushing into my room. All I hear is all this banging and glass breaking and this huge thump. I hear someone hollering. My mother's frantic. She comes in there, she grabs me up. She puts this little red hood on me. I could hear my dad kicking the door and breaking the glass, punching out the glass with his fist. And he's constantly yelling, you got 10 seconds to get my son out here or I'm gonna come in there and kill you. So I had to run out the back, run to the left, and then run all the way down to the front to where my father was. I always remember in my young mind thinking like, can I get there? Can I run fast enough before he actually breaks through that door? And if he breaks through that door, how am I gonna get in there and stop him from killing my mother? I remember at 4, I may have been 5 years old, but I remember the first time I thought about if I could do something to like kill him, I know that he wouldn't kill my mother. And the only thing that I believe stopped me from at least attempting it was that I didn't think I was strong enough to push a knife through my father's chest. And that was what gave me fear, because I felt like if I did that and it didn't work, he never hit me, but I always thought that he would take it out on my mother.
His father left home before Curtis reached kindergarten. His mother worked 3 jobs, but still could not afford a babysitter.
My son didn't have the privilege to go to school, come home, and go outside and play. He had to stay in the house till I got home to feed him and go to another job. And him staying in the house.
She had this little key that she would put around my neck with a shoestring. And I would just sit in the window because I was petrified to be in the house by myself. This window became my TV, and this became my association with the community when I wasn't able to go outside. So I watched fights. It seems as though everyone used to fight right down here on this hill. Violence was just a part of life. My mother talks about how every day that I went out, she wondered if I was going to come back home.
Before his senior year at Alderdice High School, Martin's mother gave him a dose of tough love to keep him safe. Martin had to join an activity, or else.
I gave him a month and a half to get involved in something. I didn't care what it was, Glee Club, anything. I didn't care. It's up to you, buddy. He went and tried out for football, and this is what happened.
The first time they pitched me the ball, I ran an 80-yard touchdown. It was a place that I felt safe, that I didn't worry about any outside problems. I became intrigued with making people miss. I think sometimes when you grow up in an environment like that, you don't dream but so far. I was never really exposed to too much that was positive. I think that sometimes your dreams are smothered by your circumstances, and I was one of those people.
Martin earned a college scholarship to Pitt, and in a breakout junior season, he became a star. Football remained a safe haven and offered an opportunity to accomplish a goal he never thought possible.
From the time I was 9 to the time I was 20, I had at least 35 to 40 family members or friends that didn't just die from natural causes, but were, in most cases, brutally murdered. I had escaped death so much by that time that I was 20 years old. And I always thought that I would die before I was 21. I always had this reoccurring nightmare that I would get killed before I was 21. You know, in the hood, you always talk about that dude made a deal with the devil because of the evil that you would witness him do. Why don't I ever hear anyone talking about making deals with God? So for me, that was my goal. Go to the nearest church. Before I leave that church, make a deal with God. And I still remember the pew that I was sitting in. And I looked up and I said, listen, dude, I don't, man, it's like, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but you're gonna have to make me because I don't understand anything about you. I don't even know how to pray or nothing. But just let me live past 21 and I'll try my best. God upheld his end of the bargain. So I feel as though the rest of my life is about me upholding my end of the bargain.
Coming up.
Curtis Martin leaps into the end zone with 19 seconds to go in the game.
I think I call him a one-game wonder.
How you doing there, Wonder? You all right?
I heard you like to play chess.
Oh, yeah. Chess is my game. I've always loved strategy. I think I'm a very strategic person. And I used to always hear about the different strategies that goes into chess. You know, I always tell, Jim Brown is my chess partner. And,
Jim Brown?
Yeah. I'm trying to catch you sleeping, Lawson.
When you play chess, when you play football, you gotta think and you gotta see things.
One of the major principles of chess, you sacrifice certain pieces to advance. And I think it's just like life. There's a lot of times where you have to take one step back to take 2 steps forward.
Curtis Martin's NFL prospects took a big leap forward with a 251-yard rushing performance in the first game of his senior season at Pitt.
Curtis Martin is running at will.
The step back came the next week as he suffered a season-ending ankle injury. An injury-plagued college career left his NFL future up in the air.
We had a lot of questions to answer in regard to Curtis because he had a really minimal football background.
Bill Parcells' New England Patriots were one of the few teams interested in Martin.
The New England Patriots select running back from the University of Pittsburgh, Curtis Martin, the New Orleans.
I get a call, and it's Bill Parcells on the phone. And he says, "Hello, son, we just want to know if you would like to be a New England Patriot." And I said, "Yes, sir, yes."
Martin, boy, if he's healthy, he's real good.
That's right, and the thing is, can you keep him on the field? And if you do, you got yourself a good back.
I remember as soon as I hung up the phone, I turned around and told her, I was just like, I realized I really don't want to play football. And my pastor, who was there, he said, "Well, Curtis, listen, all of those wonderful things you say you want to do for other people, maybe football is just that vehicle that God has given you to do those things." And it was literally that moment that I feel as though football took on a whole different meaning. I look at football as my sacrifice. It was like my basic training.
In Parcells, Martin had a drill sergeant who thrived on pushing players to their limits.
The emphasis that we always tried to put, particularly for our running backs, was strength, stamina, and endurance.
Right.
The first preseason game, I kind of told my coach, I said, "Listen, we're going to find out about this guy pretty quick here." We just repeatedly gave him the ball on the first drive 6 or 7, 8 times in a row.
Again, Martin. He's going to get it again. Guy can play football, Jerry.
And he did well, but he was exhausted.
and I'm breathing so hard. I got snot coming out of my nose. I mean, I'm just a mess. And he says, "You ready to quit?" And I got ready to run back in. And he grabbed me and said, "No, you're done."
That was just all part of the endurance lesson. And for him to gain a quick understanding of where he needed to go if he wanted to be successful.
Parcells would not let up on Martin once the regular season started.
The first play of the game, they gave me the ball.
The handoff, Mr. Curtis Martin, sweeping to the left, cuts it back. 40, 45, turns out there to the 45, he's flipping to the 45 on the right sideline, across the 45. A brilliant 29-yard run on the first play from scrimmage for Curtis Martin in the National Football League.
Went right down to the end. We had a goal line situation there.
Here we go. Give me your best goal line play, Ray. 33-0.
I'll never forget taking that ball, trying to jump over the top, getting hit by Pepper Johnson, and then with everything I had, stretching out again, and finally got the ball across the goal line.
Yes! Curtis Martin leaps into the end zone for a touchdown with 19 seconds to go in the game. Patriots take the lead.
Martin was proving a worthy student for Parcells, but there were still many lessons for the rookie to learn.
I remember walking to the locker room, and there were a group of reporters around Curtis, and Parcells yelling out, "Let's not put him in Canton yet."
Stop making this guy a Hall of Famer right now. Like, he really, tore into them and then tore into me.
You know, it's just one game, fellas, you know, leave the guy alone. But I think I called him a one-game wonder.
My goal was that he would stop calling me a one-game wonder. I wanted him to call me a 2-game, 3-game, 4-game wonder.
How you doing there, Wonder? You all right?
Good,
you
Coach.
just relax.
Yeah,
you do
right.
great today.
All right.
Take care of that ball real good now.
You like what you see up to that time. You like his development. You think it's coming along. But you never really find out about a guy until the real adversity hits.
The troubles began in week 2. By mid-October, week 1's boy wonder was benched.
I always saw the way I run as artistic. I thought that, you know, I make it up as I go, depending upon my instincts. And he said, you can't make everybody miss. You can't run around the ends in the NFL. People are too fast. It was almost as though, I felt like an artist with no paintbrush. And then eventually, he came to me and he said, "Son, am I hindering you by telling you what to do?" And I said, "Coach, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I feel like you're taking away everything I'm just gifted at doing." And he said, "Well, you know what, son? Just run."
Free to create, the artist put his brush to canvas. The results were bold and brilliant. Nearly 1,500 rushing yards and Rookie of the Year honors, with a yearning to do more.
You know, the first year, we didn't go to the playoffs. In the second year, it's like everything's on the line. Like, we know we can make it to the Super Bowl.
Gives to Curtis Martin up the middle inside the 10. Spinning outside. Turning the corner. Curtis Martin.
That's right. That's my main man. That's the one that get the credit right there. He is legit.
It's a new step. You're in a different level of competition. Once you get in the playoffs, things are a little bit different.
The Patriots would face Martin's hometown Steelers. The drill sergeant had a plan to motivate his artist.
I could sense something that was very important to him. And he was excited about it. And I started teasing him. I said, you might have big game disease. I said, you might be halfway scared of some of these guys, you know? And
I was so bent on proving him wrong.
Neither the Steelers nor a thick fog could cloud Martin's vision.
You know how they talk about a player going into a zone? I don't think that I've ever been in a zone during my career the way I was that day. I know that, you know, Pittsburgh Steelers are like gods. The fact that I was destroying and we were destroying those hopes and those dreams for the fans was just incredible to me.
Martin finished the game with 3 touchdowns, 166 yards, and a run that eliminated any symptoms of big game disease.
It was a pitch to the right.
The pitch to Curtis Martin across.
I hit the hole, and I put this final move on Carnell Lake. And I'm in the open, and there's nothing but fog ahead of me. And I was trying to just push my face through the fog to make me run faster. One of my most exciting plays in the NFL.
In Super Bowl 31, Martin would reach the end zone. But the Patriots would fall short of their ultimate goal.
We realized that we have a lot of talent. We realized that we're very young, and we realized that we had the ability to come back to the Super Bowl. So that's what we're focused on.
A return trip to the Super Bowl would have to happen without Martin's mentor.
Okay, guys, I'm done.
I know you say you had like Bill Parcells as a father figure. How important was that, having a father figure?
Well, you know, it was just important for me to have a man in my life that I respected. I think it's pretty dangerous for a kid to grow up without someone that he really looks up to. And Parcells was probably the first man that I looked up to.
In 1997, Bill Parcells left the Patriots for the Jets, and Curtis Martin felt abandoned.
I think we were the favorites to go back to the Super Bowl. We had a tremendous amount of talent. It's like, why would you leave this situation? But I think it started to understand and walk into the world of business in football.
But Martin still had unfinished business when he faced his mentor for the first time.
At that moment, it would have been like my dying wish was to beat the New York Jets, just because Bill was over there.
Curtis Martin having perhaps his greatest day as an NFL player.
Curtis Martin, 199 yards on 40 carries.
Every time I got the ball and had a pretty successful run, it's funny, I would walk up their sideline and just stare at him.
Don't be looking over here at me like that, Boy Wonder. I said, I know what you're doing.
And after it was over, I remember him coming up to me and say, Boy Wonder, who you think you're staring at like that? And I just said, Coach, you know, I love you so much, man. That was what was getting me up for this game. And he said, I love you too, Boy Wonder. And we just walked our separate ways. One of the other people who was pretty instrumental, I think, in my development was Mr. Kraft, who's the owner of the team. It's funny, he used to take me with his family on their Jewish holidays and bring me over to their home
But I remember he especially liked Myra's chicken soup with matzo balls. And he took a real shining to it, to the point where Myra would always make some, at least the chicken soup, and say, put it in his locker.
Growing up, we couldn't afford to celebrate holidays the way other people did. When I was 8 years old, I said, Mom, listen, I know that we're really poor, so from now on, you don't ever have to buy me anything for my birthday or for Christmas or anything like that. For their Jewish holidays, for me to be able to sit around a table and eat dinner with a family was something that was out of the box for me and meant more than I think Mrs. Kraft or Mr. Kraft will ever know.
The Patriots owner also gave Martin lessons in business. The most important one occurred as Martin entered free agency after the 1997 season, when Kraft explained the Patriots' contract offer.
It's going to be 6 years for $12 million. There'll be a $2 million signing bonus. And it's just at these positions, you just never know what's going to happen the next day.
We had our statistical gurus tell us that, we should be cautious because he was injured in college. He had some injuries playing for us.
I remember just a year before, Drew Bledsoe had signed a contract for 6 years, $42 million. And his signing bonus was $12 million. But I just felt like I was worth more than Drew Bledsoe's signing bonus. I think I may have been the closest player to Mr. Kraft, and the friendship that we had. And most people would look at that and get offended. It made me admire him even more because I recognized how he was able to separate the personal from the business.
New England could afford to take a hard line in negotiations. As a restricted free agent, they had the right to match any offer to Martin. And if they did not, the Patriots would receive the first and third round draft choices of Martin's new team.
We knew we could always match any offer until an offer came in that had a poison pill part of it. We're trying to do something that was within the rules, but would make it difficult for New England to match the contract.
The Jets signed Martin to an offer sheet with a player option that essentially split the deal into two contracts and would have put New England over the salary cap.
So the first deal they signed me to was a 1 year, $4.5 million deal. Then, just to make sure that the Patriots couldn't match it, they signed me to a 6-year long-term deal that was worth at least 3 times what Mr. Kraft had offered me in the car.
Curtis Martin is one of the finest young men you'll ever meet. He's a great human being. He performed beautifully for us, but this deal just got non-economic. No one had ever done that before. No one had ever paid that premium for a player. I always believed he'd retire as a Patriot. It's like seeing a girl you were in love with or had a big crush on dating some other guy.
It was difficult for New England to let Curtis Martin go. In New York, he would turn a rival from division doormat to one of the best teams in the AFC.
What did the New York fans think of you when you first arrived?
I think the fans actually disliked me. And the fact that Bill Parcells went through hell and high water to get me there, I think that many of the fans and many of the writers disagreed with it, and disagreed with it pretty intensely.
It wouldn't take long after Curtis Martin's arrival from the Patriots in 1998 for Jets fans to learn about the resilience of their new running back.
In the beginning of the camp, you know those tendons behind your knees? I popped them like a rubber band. I mean, literally, it's like they just rolled up like a shade. They thought I was done for the season, and they were already saying that I was damaged goods. I played, and that's what I believe that was part of the reason why I started off really slow in those first 2 games. I'll never forget that feeling of having 80,000 people booing me. It's never really about proving them wrong as much as it is proving myself right.
Soon, the doubting fans discovered what the coach already knew. Getting Curtis Martin down is no easy task.
The thing that he did well, and I think it proved to be the reason he played so long and gained so many yards, was that he was not overly fast, but he was elusive. They just never really got a great shot at him.
The pitch running wide. A spectacular run by Curtis Martin. Testaverde on the pitch to Martin running right. Tries to cut back inside the 5, touchdown. Curtis Martin with the patience of a saint.
Martin helped New York get to the verge of something even more elusive to the Jets, a Super Bowl berth.
Feeling great. Ready to win this thing.
The pitch to Martin running left. He's to the touchdown line. Across the line, touchdown. Curtis Martin.
Like, we're up 10 in the 3rd quarter, so we all think we're going to the Super Bowl. And before you know it, they're up and they're going to the Super Bowl.
The clock strikes midnight for the New York Jets.
Out of all the games that I played, even the Super Bowl that I played in, that was probably the worst taste in my mouth that I've had from the game.
Despite the loss, the Jets felt they were building the foundation for success. At the same time, Martin was laying the groundwork for a reconciliation with his father.
I watched my mother be so bitter, and rightfully so. She had been through a lot, but she was hell-bent on never forgiving my father, never speaking to my father. I think that seeing her bitterness shaped me into a very forgiving person. I decided to surprise him, and I blindfolded him, and we get to this place, and when I take the blindfold off, we were in a condo that my mother and I spent at least 3 months to fix up. And he takes it off and he looks around, he's like, wow, it's a really nice place. And I said, this is one of your gifts. I want to show you the other gift, his dream car, which was a Cadillac.
6 months after Kurt had did it, I had found out that his dad had sold his car, a new Cadillac, for $6,000.
None of that really affected me in a negative way. Walking around with unforgiveness in my heart, something I refuse to do.
The 1999 season started with a blow to the team's Super Bowl aspirations.
Vinny Testaverde is out for the season. It is a ruptured left Achilles.
And ended with Bill Parcells' resignation. He was the father figure Martin never had, and Curtis offered a gift to express his gratitude.
I got the team MVP trophy, and in my mind, I said, I couldn't have done this without Bill. And I felt as though that it was as much his MVP trophy as it was mine. So what I did was I wrote out a letter explaining how I felt about him.
Coach, this award is the best and most gratifying I've ever received.
Don't get me going here, because I'm going to get a little emotional thinking about it.
You've given me and football some of your best years.
I go up to my office one day, and there's the trophy, and there's a letter sitting on my chair.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you are and all that you've done for me.
If you never do anything else for the rest of your life, I just want you to know that you possibly saved a young man's life, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you.
But I have that letter today. I have that trophy today, and I have it displayed and proudly. And it's one of the most personally rewarding things that I've ever received in this life.
I find it so interesting the way an artist sees the world. Like, where does that insight or inspiration, is it just something that you're born with, or?
I was always good at drawing, but it wasn't until that I had an opportunity to do something big that I decided I was like, I want to paint something for other people that they can see that I think they would appreciate.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily for me, but
it's almost like your gift to the world.
Yeah.
In a sense, yeah?
Why did you play football?
I played football really as an escape. That's the way it started off. But what it morphed into was it being a vehicle for me to reach other people and impact their lives in a positive way.
Blue, go.
During Curtis Martin's rookie season with the Patriots, he met a fan after practice.
Curtis was coming out, and I was like, hey, my brother's having a Patriots birthday party. You know, do you think you can come? Here's the information. And he said, oh, if I can make it, I'll be there. Like, we didn't think he was gonna show up. So it was party day, and all of a sudden, I remember seeing him walk to the door, and I was like, Mom, look.
I didn't have to practice, didn't have to do anything. So I said, I'm gonna keep my word to this little guy. It was incredible for him. It was really incredible, and I ended up enjoying it so much. So we ended up forming a bond that went beyond just me and Mike.
Martin and Jen Potashnik grew closer as she battled an illness through high school and college.
I had an allergic reaction to an antibiotic, which eventually took my vision when I graduated college.
I would call her, we would talk, we would pray together, and I could just see how much hope it would give her.
And him and his mom sent me flowers, and this teddy bear came with it. There's just the thought that some stranger moved into your heart and had such an impact. That's something that I don't think I'd ever let go of.
Martin went from stranger to friend, from Patriot to Jet, and from steady workhorse to All-Pro. During his first 4 years in New York, no NFL running back ran for more yards.
And he becomes the 16th player in the history of the NFL to go over 10,000 yards rushing.
But the wear and tear of his workload began to take its toll. Martin hobbled through the 2002 season.
In the first game against Buffalo, London Fletcher was trying to tackle me and almost spun my ankle all the way around. I tore almost every ligament and tendon. In the fourth game of that year, I did the exact same thing to the other ankle. My ankles would swell up so much that it was wider than my knees. My ankles were the size of the bottom part of my thighs. I would be out on the field with tears in my eyes because it feels like someone has jammed the glass or razor blades into your ankle and you still have to maneuver with them.
Curtis Martin can play through pain about as well as any player that I've come across in the league. He's been hurt a lot, still finds a way to
the touchdowns were more difficult and more fulfilling. Martin donated 15% of each paycheck to charity and continued investing in his relationship with his father.
So I canceled everything and I decided I was going to fly to Pittsburgh and then fly back out after I was done spending time with my father.
And he called his dad, just said, "Dad, I'm getting ready to go to camp. Why don't you and I go to the show and then have dinner after the show?"
And, you know, I hear this hesitation in his voice, and he's like, "Yeah, all right. I said, "What, something wrong?" He said, "Well, how about this? Why don't you just give me the money that you was going to spend for the dinner and for the movie, and then we'll get together a different time."
He was hurt. He was so hurt, and I was hurt.
After injury-plagued 2002 and 2003 seasons, Martin did not reduce his expectations for 2004.
I ended up getting focused on getting 1,700 yards in a year. I made all my passcodes to the building 1,700. All my codes to my phones were 1,700.
Curtis Martin, just shy of 200 yards on the ground.
And I finished with 1,697.
You know, there was a lot of talk about Martin declining. I don't see any decline in Curtis Martin. This guy is something special.
At the age of 31, Martin earned his first rushing title.
The satisfaction wasn't the fact that I was the rushing leader as much as that I was the oldest person to ever lead the league in rushing.
That's the way to keep fighting, fellas. That's the way to keep fighting.
At my eulogy, I don't want my daughter to talk about how many yards I gained or touchdowns I scored. I want my daughter to be able to talk about the man that Curtis Martin was.
Handoff Martin off the right side. He's at the 30, out across the 40, and that puts him over 14,000 for his career. Only Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders have gone over the 14,000-yard mark, and they are on their feet saluting Curtis Martin.
Football gave me a great crash course on determination, work ethic. But when change is necessary, not to change is destructive.
A knee injury in 2005 led to the change that Curtis Martin readily accepted.
It's a difficult time for any professional athlete to make the transition from being a pro athlete to something else. Curtis was fully prepared to make the transition because I don't think that he ever viewed football as the entirety of Curtis Martin.
Leaving the field meant more opportunities for Martin to grow businesses with the goals of helping others. It also allowed him to focus on starting something he'd wanted since his childhood, a family.
My father, he was never there for my mother as a husband. I made a very conscious decision to wait until I was finished playing to get married, to have kids.
1, 2, 3.
He's patient. He lets the time come for things. And in our story of how we met and ended up married, I mean, from the time he saw me and thought, that's Mrs. Martin potential, to when we were at the altar, it was about 10 years later. So I think that he has this uncanny ability to know when the right time has come for something.
The time to share his life story publicly came in 2012 when he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I said, "You ready for this?" He said, "Well, I don't have any notes." And I said, "Well, that's interesting."
He said, "Ma, I'm just going to get up there and speak from my heart," and that's just what he done.
Listen, I don't necessarily have notes, so I'm gonna kind of bare my soul and just bear with me. But
I mean, if you want to listen to something that will truly inform yourself about Curtis Martin, and also maybe change your own life in a way, listen to his Hall of Fame speech.
I grew up in a pretty bad neighborhood, but the household that I lived in was even worse.
It felt so raw and painful to listen to sometimes.
I watched my mother get punched in the face, have a black eye, and then go to work with makeup on just to support our family. I remember watching him torture you, Mom. He'd go in there with a cigarette and put cigarette burns all over her legs, what she still bears to this day. And Mom, I thank you so much for the sacrifices that you've made for me. I'll tell you, my greatest achievement in my life was helping my mother and nurturing my mother from the bitter, angry person that she was, nurturing her to forgive my father for everything that he did to her.
My mother and I were riding through this part of town where I grew up, and we saw my father at a bus stop.
He says, "Ma, there's my dad. Pick my dad up." You must be crazy.
I said, "All right, well, Mom, think about this. This man has ruined your life for all of my life. And it's still happening, and he's been gone for over 20 years. Can you honestly say that if my father was there, that I would have turned out the way I did, that we would experience what we experience now?" And I think the truth of it was so there that she couldn't deny it.
And we rode his dad home. When he got out of my car, something just like touched me in my heart.
She looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, "I feel like I just dropped off a whole big bag of bricks."
But if Rochella Martin was going to take the next step in forgiving her ex-husband, she had little time left.
He says, "Mom, my dad is sick." He said he has cancer.
And from that moment on, they begin to develop at least a conversation.
So I called him up and I says that from now on, when you have to go to chemo, I'll take you. I start cooking for him.
She said that literally changed her life.
If my son would not have went on that journey with me with his dad, today I do not know how I would be in mind of not just opening up and let that go.
Curtis Martin has a deep appreciation for the possibilities of a blank canvas. He's filled the frame of his own life with an extraordinary work.
Oh my goodness. Look.
Remember this right here is, I used to have to wear the key around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my.
I look just like my dad, too.
It sure does. What a great job you did.
Thank you.
Remember all these?
No, do I remember? Yes. To see that picture and journey that we was on. Sometimes, I guess, a hard journey comes out the best.
There's this piece when you first come in my door. It is one of the most beautiful settings. I mean, it almost looks like heaven on earth. But it's surrounded by this huge concrete frame. And for me, it's symbolic to my life. There is a very warm, spiritual, giving part of me. And I believe that's my inside. But it was framed by the concrete circumstances that I grew up in and gave shape to that warm inside that is now me.